I would say generally a high value man is like, of course, look, I'm not going to deny some men are just built naturally at an advantage. A lot of the talk online is like men have to build their value and women are just born with it. That's simply not true. Some men are born 6'4". Some men are born totally muscles and all these things. Some men are born into wealth. Some men are born at an advantage. So some high value, there are some prerequisites that are objective that can be unfair. So it could be something like the money they make, or the lifestyle or their upbringing might put them in a higher value, or things like, their weight and stuff like that. All of those things matter. Objectively, those things matter. Psychologically speaking, I think what really makes a man high value is a really high level of self-esteem, and self-esteem simply comes from self-respect. What self-respect looks like is doing what's best for you, even if you want to give in to your current desires. And what I mean by that is, let's say, for example, this woman is fantastic and she's great sex, but she's dangerous, she's chaotic. The man that can't walk away from that woman and hyper attaches to her is automatically low value, because he has allowed one desire to dictate all his behavior. Or let's say there's lots of alcohol in the room and he can't resist alcohol, and he might be really successful, really great, but he's such a sucker for alcohol and he's addicted to it, and he can't overcome that one temporary desire for his long-term goals. High value men can suppress some of their current desires for their long-term vision of themselves, whether that's food, whether it's how they spend their money, is whether the women they select. They have the ability to practice self-control in different areas of their life.
She's talking about me, which is crazy. I think she's really hitting image. It's weird. Are you describing me?
But I would imagine you do have self-control, because it's hard to build something this high without it. But here's where high value men get it wrong. They have incredible self-control in business, terrible with women. And you have to be holistically high value. And what I mean by that is it can't stop when you leave the office, your level of self-control and your level of self-respect. You don't throw it out the window and then go home to a wife that's abusive, or a woman that's transactional and uses you and abuses you. It has to extend to every area of your life, and particularly outside of the boardroom.
And what makes a high value woman?
I would say it's a bit, look, again, I know it's going to sound politically incorrect, but beauty is essential to be high value as a woman, not because I believe it, but because this is what men respond to. In order for men for you to have high value, without beauty, unfortunately, you're limited in your value. And so, I'm not saying everybody has to be high value, but beauty doesn't necessarily just mean that you have to be the most attractive person in the room. It's just that you take care of your appearance. That means you stay on top of your weight to some extent, and that means you stay on top of your appearance. You dress as well as you can. You carry yourself well. You can't be totally out of shape and totally not take care of yourself and expect to be high value because you've got a degree in optometry or something. You've got a great job. It doesn't work that way. It's what men respond to. So appearance is really important. But the main thing I would say to be a high value woman is, though you've got appearance and though you've got so many options when it comes to men, you reject more men than you accept. You have ability to reject attention. High value women can reject attention and verbal attention from men all day, every day. Compliments mean nothing. Attention means nothing, because they look for something more valuable than that. And they know that talk is cheap. So high value women, you can't buy them, and you can't get them through just words. They have to be attracted to who you are as a human being. So if you are a man who's such a mess and you've got no self-control, you've got nothing going on in your life, and you've got a beautiful woman, she's still not high value, because if she was truly high value, she wouldn't have selected you. High value women would be looking at your choices in your life, and they would be choosing a man who makes really good decisions, has really good self-control, treats her really well. So they have really high selection process. So they take care of themselves, they have a really high selection process, and you can't buy them through attention and money. And I would say those are the main ingredients. Of course, nurture is really important. Naturally nurturing and caring is really important. If she's not family orientated, I know that sounds a bit like, old fashioned, but family orientated and nurturing women naturally enjoy looking after the men they're with.
Now, it seems like you have a lot of very traditional values and opinions. Where did that come from? And how do you think that fits into society today, which has rejected a lot of that?
It's so bizarre, because I was born and raised in London. But my parents are from Pakistan, from Kashmir, which is a very traditional area in Pakistan. And for some reason, even though I grew up in London, I'm Muslim as well, I was just always very much identified with my culture. So I'd always get faced with alternative views. But my parents were so strict, I almost didn't have a choice. I had to stay quite traditional. I wasn't allowed out late. I wasn't allowed to have a boyfriend or anything like that. So I was always, and I never drank alcohol. So I had these restrictions and I had this religious faith. So instead, I think what happened with my mind is because I wasn't allowed to do all the things that everybody else was doing, I found mental justifications for why the way I live my life is better or why it's better for me. So what happened is I had to constantly challenge what society was telling me. And so because society would say to me, oh, you should be sleeping around, you should be doing this, and I wasn't allowed to, I had these two completely conflicting doctrines, and then I had to find my own decision making, and mine just usually drifted towards more the traditional route. And so I was confronted with the opposite of what I was being told at home, and I had to form my own judgment. And that's why I'm kind of against the grain when it comes to my culture, because I was against like the Western culture, because I used to identify more with my Eastern values.
Do you think one is better than the other overall?
Yeah,
I know
I'm
it's
going to be biased.
Yeah,
I'm going to be biased.
General here, but what are the benefits of being more
I'm going to be biased because I have family that are far more traditional than I am. I'm actually very liberal by my family standard because, you know, I don't cover up and stuff. So I'm still very, somewhat modern. But I would say the only thing that I see is a difference, and I think that is better for mental health, is in Eastern culture, their value is not derived by extrinsic values. And what I mean by that is they're less likely to base their self-worth on looks, money, sex, vices. They don't really base their self-esteem on pleasure. They're more likely to base their self-esteem on duty. Have I got married? Have I got kids? Have I given money to my parents? A successful man who has achieved endless heights in his career. Are you somebody who's absolutely made it in his professional life, but his personal life just doesn't seem to match up? Are you somebody who goes through intense highs in business, but intense lows in your personal relationships? You might be somebody who has been blocking out relationships or entering relationships where you don't feel appreciated, or it's lacking the sexual or emotional intimacy that you require. If this sounds like you, then I have a program specifically catered to your needs. I've been helping high-end clients for a really long time, and I'm able to identify the exact problems, the exact causes, and the exact solutions. So if this sounds like you, then please feel free to register below your details, and I will send you all the, and I'll be able to, I'll be able to send over my program and hopefully fix, and I'll be able to send over my program and hopefully help, and I'll be able to send over my program and hopefully I'll be able to send over my program and help you attain the love and personal life that you've been craving. Have I supported everybody in my area, in my tribe? Have I contributed to society? So because their self-worth becomes more communal, I think it's better for my self-esteem if I drift more towards those values.
What's really interesting is when I was doing research into you,
were you really bored? You can be honest. It must
no.
I
loved it. I loved it. It's very applicable to me. So it actually, it helps a lot.
Jack is taking notes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to review this plenty of times. When I was taking notes, I decided to call up a few women my age that were single to ask them, what are their thoughts? What's their perspective, in dating in the modern age, I suppose. And every single time they brought up, I hate this whole high value, low value thing. Which is really interesting because I think colloquially it's kind of turned into a little bit more of a toxic thing. But I also think that it's inaccurate to say that a small percentage of guys and a small percentage of women get most of the attention. So why do you think people have such a negative response to more traditional values in this sense? Why do you think people are gravitating towards something that you would say is ineffective?
Because it's quicker. That's all it is. It's far quicker. It's far quicker to say to yourself, I know I'll be a high value man. I'll just get a girl half my age. She'll be super hot and I'll buy her if I have to. And then I can walk into a room and then I can be known as a high value man. Or I quickly, make a few bucks, whether I do it in a corrupt way through or scamming people, or if I just do it, sell a few things, whatever it is, it's quicker. So people are looking for things that are quicker. But there's a lot of truth in what you're saying. It doesn't make sense that only top people are getting matches or getting relationships, because most people get relationships. The top people, I think, have it harder to find people and find matches. So I think what's happened is social media has become a lot of people's source of human interaction. You can call your friends and quickly say, do you believe this? And she'll say, no, that's some nonsense. And you can dismiss what you saw on social media. A lot of people, social media is their only access to opinions. And therefore they think this is what the world is living. But when you have more real life engaging conversations with actual people, you realize that all this high value, low value stuff is real nonsense.
Do you think dating is more difficult today for men or women?
I would say it's the hardest time for good women to find a partner. And I would say that I think good women have it the hardest.
Why?
I think corrupt women have it really great. I think corrupt men have it really great. Good women have it really hard, and good men have
So
it
what
quite
is it
hard.
about corruption that maybe makes it a little bit smoother?
It's highly rewarded. And what I mean by this is if a woman online decides to sell a body part, she will get highly rewarded for it. She'll be flown out to countries she didn't even know existed by the time she's 19, 20 years old. She can go on a private jet by the time she's 23, and she will have bags, clothes. It's so hyper rewarded for being corrupt as a woman. It's so rewarded by men in society. And I was scrolling once on Instagram and I saw this woman that just looked really bizarre, like really huge ass and, like really big, it looked like a caricature. And I was like, this is wild. And I clicked on it and there's 6 million followers. And I thought that would be about 5 million men that are following that. Whereas if you look at a woman who's just doing recipes, who's teaching kids, she's got nothing online. She's not going to have that much.
Yeah, but isn't it quality versus quantity in that case?
But you've got to see where men's attention is being directed and who their resources are being directed towards. I'm in a very unique position. I've been saying this a lot and I know it's going to be misinterpreted. I'm in a very unique position where I'm a woman who has a lot of access to male subscribers and without showing my body. But it's nothing compared to women who show their body.
Yeah, but I feel like it's the equivalent of, let's say, getting 10 million views on TikTok versus 100,000 views on YouTube. Like the 100,000 views on YouTube is way more valuable.
It's more valuable, but for me, I'm totally fine with that trade-off. But it tells you what men are willing to invest in more. So if I'm somebody, I'm personally totally fine with that. I'm all praise be to God, very grateful for my exposure and whatever it is that I do get from it. But let's take the woman that is just trying to make a buck or just trying to get through life or is just trying to, there's more broken homes than ever before. There's all that. I always just being indoctrinated by social media. What is she going to think? Am I going to follow the Sadia psychology route of like going through years of education and then trying this, that, and the other and then going online? Or am I going to follow the route of every girl I know who just posts a bikini picture and gets flown out to Saint-Tropez?
Yeah, but my thought is that in defense of some of those people, it works. I mean, there's obviously such a big market for it. Yeah. And if you're rewarded for those things and it benefits you, why wouldn't you go down that route?
That's my point. I think it's that's why corruption has it really great. But a good woman who's not willing to sacrifice her self-respect, who doesn't want to be flown out, but does want wants a high value man or whatever, who wants a good relationship, she's being overlooked.
So is it possible to still do those things but not be corrupted?
No.
Like, let's just say you're in your room. You don't get on a private jet. You're not, but you're posting pictures. It's still possible to maintain?
I think so. As long as you're not responsive to the advances. I think once you've gotten a private jet, and there's a one-way street. You're not going to go from private jet to coach.
So is it that like once you experience those things, you can never downgrade that level of expectation?
Men are the same sexually. Once they experience something sexually, it's very difficult for them to go backwards. Some women, not all of them, once they experience a level of lifestyle, it's very difficult for them to go backwards. Once they experience a level of commitment from men.
Isn't that true with guys too? It's like once you get used to a certain size of house, like I went from 800 square feet and I moved into a place that was 1,800 square feet.
Oh, wow.
To me, that was massive. Like that 1,800 square foot house was more space than I knew what to do with. Yeah. Then I moved from that to 4,000 square feet. And I thought 4,000, that's massive. Now I've run out of space.
Yeah.
So I feel like even for men, you just get used to, it's just a human nature thing. Like you'll get used to
a different level of stimulation and a different level of attention. The problem is when you're used to attention from thousands of men, to adapting to attention of one man becomes difficult. Yeah, when I'm used to, let's say I post a picture and thousands of men comment, thousands of men tell me I'm fantastic or whatever it is. And then going from that level of stimulation and attention to one man being able to provide that level, it becomes a different playing field. So it becomes harder to adapt to.
And what about for men? Couldn't the same be said about men going on, let's say, Instagram and seeing thousands of women there that get the most likes and physically they're the most attractive because they get pushed to the top of the algorithm? Couldn't that also skew a guy's perception?
Absolutely. When you speak to men and ask them which women had them the most on a chokehold, which woman had them the most, they'll always focus on the woman that they found the most attractive or the one that gave them the best sexual experience. Very rarely will they focus on the woman that treated them the best. And if they do focus on that girl, they say, she was a lovely girl. I can't say a word about her. That was bad, but it just didn't work out. But the girl that had them, that treated them badly, but as long as she gave them the best sex, she'll be the one that they think about for years on end. So it happens to men in reverse. And that's why corruption is being rewarded, because women are learning very quickly that the quickest route to reward from men is by selling yourself. And that's unfortunate because sex sells, sadly.
Yeah.
And that's the unfortunate lesson that we're teaching young girls.
But before we go into that, this portion of the video is sponsored by Range Rover Sport, because as you guys know, I'm an absolute fanatic when it comes to cars, so much so that I even have one on display in my office. And if you're looking for a sporting luxury car that's powerful on the road, dynamic by design, and truly embodies the essence of automotive excellence, then I'm proud to introduce something very special, the Range Rover Sport.
The third generation Range Rover Sport is the most desirable, advanced, and dynamically capable yet. It leads by example with powerful on-road performance and commanding all-terrain capability. With its striking design and unmistakable presence, it is the epitome of both performance and luxury combined.
Inside, you'll discover advanced technologies like active noise cancellation, cabin air purification, and the award-winning Pivi Pro infotainment system, which provides intuitive control over the entire vehicle.
By the way, Graham, talk about those massage seats.
Oh yeah, and you're also going to be driving in total comfort with the optional 22-way adjustable, heated, and ventilated electric memory front seats with massage function.
It is absolutely insane.
And you can start designing your Range Rover Sport today at LandRoverUSA.com. Again, that's LandRoverUSA.com, or you could use the link down below in the description. So thank you again to the Range Rover Sport for sponsoring this episode, which is absolutely insane to say because as a kid, I've grown up as a huge fan of their cars. I really appreciate having this be like a dream coming true. So thank you so much. Enjoy specking out that Range Rover Sport with the link down below in the description. And now let's get back to the podcast.
And you were saying that if you're, what was the term? Good for both men or women, it's much more difficult. Why is that? Is it because you're competing with corruption or there's a smaller market?
What will happen is good men who are genuinely just going into a relationship with good intentions, who trust their partner, like as you should, and who don't think that women are playing all these games and don't think there's all this competition, they are taught to just be like, they don't want to be toxic. So what will happen is if she is doing some disrespectful behavior, the good man who's just generally just trying to have a good relationship will think it's mean of me to have too many boundaries. They'll think it's mean of me to tell her that I don't really feel comfortable with her going on so many girls' trips. They kind of just want to be like good, and they say allow it, and as a result they get mistreated. Similarly, good women who just want a good relationship, they don't lead with sex, they don't lead with enticing men, and as a result they don't retain the men's attention for as long. Because look, if a good woman wants to go online to meet a man, she might say, I really want to get to know him first before I sleep with him. Unfortunately, she's competing with girls that will sleep with him on the first night. And she's competing with girls that will, send nudes on the first, after a couple of pictures. She doesn't stand a chance. Similarly, a good man is competing with potentially all the men on Instagram and stuff. So those two people tend to have it the hardest.
Is it not a turnoff for some guys, though, to get photos like that, or to have, let's say, their first date advance so quickly and that guy's kind of thinking, oh, this isn't marriage material? Because I've heard a lot of that.
You would think that, but it depends on the quality of the sex they get from the girl. If it's fantastic sex, they forget their standards of what they're looking for. And I'll be honest with you, that's what I experienced, because they always say, no, it's a bit of a turn off, blah, blah. But it depends how much they attach to the girl and the experience. If they really liked it, they'll forget everything that they normally stand for.
So one thing you said earlier in the podcast for guys is that sex is very important, physical attraction, physical touch and stuff like that. But that coupled with support.
Yes.
Why do you think support specifically is so important for men?
Because they don't receive it from each other as much. They receive it on a shallow level. So what I mean by that is they might support each other in business, or they might support each other in a sporting event, but they don't actually know what each other are going through. Very few will say, like, I'll say even to my partner, I'll say, oh, how's your friend? He was going through that divorce. Is he okay? He's like, I don't know. He seemed fine at football. And I was like, did you not ask him? And he's like, he seemed fine. He wasn't crying. I was like, oh, he's not going to cry, but what, is he okay? And it's even with funerals. I'll be like, how is that person? Is he okay? I know his dad passed away. I don't know. He was posting on Twitter, so I think he's fine. And I'm like, no, ask him. And he just doesn't have those conversations with them.
It sounds like me.
And I'm
no
so
idea.
worried about him.
Seems fine to me. I don't know.
He's like, he seemed fine. And I was like, he's like, I didn't ask. And I'm like, but why didn't you ask? You know he's going through a divorce. And he's like, I didn't ask him. And I was like, okay.
See, but I tend to think that if it's important, the other person will bring it up.
No.
That's what I...
But why don't they? But why don't they?
Because they assume they're burdening you if they say it. They assume that look, we actually enjoy hearing each other's problems. It's a form of bonding for us as girls. For men, they assume if you can't fix the problem, what's the point of me telling you it? So they just think, okay, my mum passed away, God forbid if that ever happens to someone. They think, me telling you about it, you can't bring her back, so what's the point of me telling you? So they don't speak to people. Whereas for women, we still know that the support is helping us fix it. And just some listening is helping. So they're too problem solving and not enough emotional dependency when it comes to men. So they
do you need that sort of emotional dependency with other men, let's just say? Because I'm very much the way where if something's bothering me and I know I can't fix it, it's tough for me to bring it up. Sometimes I will, but usually it's just like, unless I really need to get it off my chest, usually it's just like, it's not worth talking about.
I understand.
In a lot of those cases.
If you're not going to use men for that, which a lot of men don't, then you definitely need it in your partnership and in your relationship. And because they don't need to speak to other men about it, this is why support is so important from their woman. And if they don't get that emotional support and they don't get that emotional intimacy, they are always trying to fill that empty hole. And usually they think that they just want other women because they just want novel sex, but really they want the novel feeling of being seen and heard by somebody else if they're deprived of that.
That's fascinating. When we're using the term high value man and high value woman and stuff like that, do you think that there are any misguided contributors to those things? So for example, like when you imagine like a quote unquote high value man, high value woman, is there something that they're kind of getting wrong? Like do people, when they imagine all of the contributing factors to a high value man, high value woman, are any of those factors, the generally understood factors, incorrect?
I think particularly the relationship with women, either the idea that to have multiple women or to have women that are, half their age and are hyper attractive, it's the women part that I find really, really contradictory. I think truly high value is the ability to ward off alternatives, to focus on your marriage and create a home for your children. That is high value because there's a legacy that you're hoping to create with children. Where they get it wrong is that you can have multiple girls on a yacht, you can sleep around and this, that, and the other. And I always say to men, if you're sleeping around, then you're potentially planting your seeds in low value women. So imagine being a man where this random girl in this city, that girl city, they're all carrying your babies and they're allowing other men into their world, or they're raising the child in a way that you don't agree with. Essentially, your legacy is being depleted. So I think that the real misconception when it comes to high value men is the idea of endless women, sleeping around loads and loads, being frivolous with who you're sleeping with, enjoying every pleasure the life has to offer, and that makes you a high value man. But I think it's actually foregoing pleasure for your long-term goals that is actually more likely to make you a high value man, particularly with the women's selection, because unlike women, we get to choose who we have children with. In this day and age, with pregnancies and abortions and contraceptives, we get to choose. As a man, my body, my choice means you have no say. So if you're a truly high value man and you've got millions to lose and you get the wrong woman pregnant, for the rest of your life, you are serving jail time emotionally and financially with that woman. You have far more to lose. You have to be so strict with who you're touching.
It's fascinating that you say that the man has to be willing to walk away.
Yes.